Hello everyone, we have some big news that came out today about YUI Mizuno, and well, if you don't know who that is, I'm surprised you clicked on this video, but I'm going to start from the basics and then work into this piece of news because YUI Mizuno as a name and just as a face is someone who the average J-rock, J-metal listener might not immediately recognize until you see this picture and you realize that she was one of the core fundamental parts of the most famous era of quite possibly the most powerful act to come out of Japan in the rock and metal space, really ever. Obviously, Babymetal, what they did for the music scene in Japan is huge and still has reverberations now, in that they took so much of what was special about Japanese music, that ability to fuse genres together, that ability to do stuff that really had like musicality, but also throw in a fun, cute flair as well, and have a bit of personality. She was right there as Babymetal had that huge breakout, and obviously their music flooded overseas and opened the door to so many other Japanese artists and overseas artists right at that point in the early 2010s when the world was getting smaller, when we were actually getting to see music online. Moreover, I mean, remember YouTube came out in like 2005, but you might remember in the first few years of YouTube they didn't allow music videos to be placed on the platform. So it was around about that sort of point in 2010 the world was getting smaller. Things were coming out called Vivo, and you had like Gangnam Style from Korea, and from Japan you had Kyori Pami Pami, and you had Babymetal. And I tell you what, of those three, the one that's still going strongest is Babymetal. But of course, Babymetal, well, they and Yui parted ways quite a few years ago, and Yui had been a big part of those first two albums, which were, well, she was a central part of those first two albums. First of all, the self-entitled album, and then you had Metal Resistance as well. And these were two albums that I think a lot of people will see as classics. But then she stepped back from the band, and today we got the news. I'm going to translate this page. Here's the English version of the page. Basically, that she has now officially left Amuse, the agency, the talent agency who takes care of the members of Babymetal. And you're probably thinking, well, hold up. She's just left now, but she hasn't been in the group for years. Well, this was something that a lot of the biggest Yui fans were keeping a close eye on, was the fact that even though she had technically speaking left the group, and even though she had not been active for many, many years now, the better part of a decade now, she had still been on this Amuse contract. This Amuse contract had been going, it had still been alive, and there were a lot of people. I was speaking to some fans on my Discord today, and one in particular mentioned how it had become a ritual for people who were big Yui fans to sort of go back to the Amuse page and regularly check to see if there was any activities, whether she was going to come back in a different form, in a different guise. Yeah, a lot of people were wondering, is she going to come back to Babymetal? Now, these are all things where I have to be honest, I've talked about this on the channel before, prior to us getting the news that we got today. And yeah, I never felt like she was going to come back to Babymetal, and a lot of that is down to several factors, but I understand why a lot of the Yui fans were really hurt, because when she actually left from Babymetal, it was in a rather odd circumstance. It was, my understanding, it was like coming up to a tour, and then suddenly she was just not on that tour, and then she was gone away, and there was people talking about her having an injury, and was that a factor? And there was this whole swirl of things that people were discussing. It kind of turned into conspiracy theory territory, as these things often do. And, when there's a complete vacuum of any facts about what's going on, and in typical Japanese fashion, the company is not giving away too much detail, then people obviously, well, facts abhor a vacuum. So as a result, all of the ideas that people had went into there. And I've heard so many theories about, Yui was being, forced to not perform, and Babymetal wasn't letting her do it, or arguments with this person, or something like that, or maybe she was still secretly involved the whole time. And to be honest, it all just started to sound like the sort of crazy stuff that political people say when you get like we get political conspiracy theories. And the thing is that you can't rebut any of those conspiracy theories, because if you don't have the facts yourself, how do you tell someone that they're wrong? All you can really say is that when you don't have any facts, you've got to weigh up the probability. What is the probability of these various things that could have happened? Well, that takes us to where we are now. And I'd like to put a bit of a sunshine and roses vibe onto this because, as mentioned, she's run out her contract. September the 30th, that's today, has come round. And as of today, she will be leaving the agency. Just to read this, let's read the translated version of the announcement first of all. I would like to inform you that YUI Mizuno will be leaving our company on September the 30th, 2025, today. As a result of many discussions with the person in the past, we respected the person's desire to leave the world of entertainment and live this life at, well, it says his, there's, pronouns aren't really used the same way in Japan, so it means hers, her own pace, and decided to terminate the contract with a company at this time. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my deep gratitude to all the fans and people involved who have supported me for a long time. Assuming this is her voice there. In the future, it will no longer be in the form of belonging to any company, but I'd like to continue to support YUI Mizuno in her future life. I'd appreciate if you could watch warmly over your new choice. Okay, that's a bit of a weird translation. The translation's coming a bit weird, but okay, so this basically just seems to be okay. So the basic idea you get though, which is that now that she has sort of moved on from this, she's moved on, and Babymetal obviously is not what she wants to do. And I get, for a lot of the people who've been fans for the longest time, that's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. But I also think there was a certain degree of acknowledgement of that. So what's the positive vibe I want to take on this? Well, I had said this for the longest possible time, which is that if you look at the timeline of what it must have been to be Yui, she grew up as a child star, basically going through Sakuragakuen, going through this kind of alleyway into fame from an age that most of us probably can't even remember being. She was already performing, she was on stage, she was doing shows, and then, she's into this Babymetal thing, and as many of us know was said in interviews, the members of Babymetal pointed out that they hadn't really listened to metal music before. So it's not like they entered Babymetal because they were like massive metal fans, it was just something they wanted to have fun, dabble with, and then it turned into its whole breakout thing of its own. And if you're YUI Mizuno, you followed this path, and when have you ever just had an opportunity to have your life, do what you want to do, maybe choose whether you want to be famous, maybe choose whether you don't want to be famous. You've got a bank account that probably now has a good lining of money in it, and then one day she got an injury or something, she gets an injury, she spends a little bit of time out, maybe she's at home with her family, which is what would normally happen with most people in this situation if they get like a bad injury and they need to recover. And just smells the roses, just sees the other side of the fence, sees that other life, sees that possibility of, hey, do you know what? There's other things I could do. I have the money, I have the opportunity, and right now I have a perfect time that I can walk out that door and, I can be gone without having to have a big explanation. And maybe that's what happened. So there's a part of me that believes that some variation of those things is probably what happened. I'd like to believe it's nothing any more dramatic than that, and old Occam's razor would suggest that it's the simplest explanation. And it would also explain why she would have just run out the contract. Obviously, Amuse are going to have someone like this who they know is going to have a big cache of fame, so they're not going to just sort of like cut her off or let her go too quickly, but probably the contract's run out, and it's just been like, do you know what, now's the time. Call it quits, she's not coming back. And let's put it this way, now that she's free from Amuse, if any of you guys think that there were any deep conspiracy theories, you'll probably be proven right when a memoir of some kind comes out. At some point there'll be some sort of tell-all book. But realistically, what I would rather think, and what I can't help but suspect, is that Yui is somewhere living her own life. Who knows? I don't know how old she'd be now. Whether she's the right age, that maybe she's married, I don't know, maybe she's got kids of her own, I have no idea. Look at that picture, she looks like really young, but I'm suspecting, given that like the rest of Babymetal now are not exactly kids, This could all be a possibility. I hope wherever she is, she's somewhere where she's already long since walked over her horizon into the sunset, off to live her own life where the rest of us will never see her again. Not for a bad reason, but for a good reason. Because she got to live that famous life that most people don't. But whereas most child stars don't get to choose to be a child star, it's even more rare to get to choose when it ends. And I would like to believe on some level that Yui got to choose when her story ended. And of course, we still get to enjoy the videos, the fun times of when she was in Babymetal. She still will always have to her name the fact that she was part of one of the most important things that ever happened in the Japanese music industry. From an international perspective, maybe even the most important things to ever happen in the Japanese music industry. And whether you love it or hate it, Babymetal still continues, and Babymetal are still releasing loads of music. They're still doing things, they're still experimenting, they're still having fun, and, you know, I hope that you guys go and show them support. I've been actually quite warmed to the amount of support that people have shown them, obviously in their different guises over time and as they've gone on. But for now, it's time for us to say a ciao ciao to Yui Mizuno, the one of the founding members, member of Sakura Gakuen, and hopefully someone who's off there living a great life of her own. But anyway, those are my thoughts. As always, get in the comments, tell me what you think, and until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these, to you and to Yui, for now, ciao ciao.